Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Jobinar Women in Technology. I'm Shanna Jacobs, recruitment manager and your host of today. But I brought two colleagues with me, Annalene and Isabel. Ladies, welcome. Can you give a short introduction of yourself, Isabel?
Yes, sure. So I'm Isabelle. I'm a head of program management in the infrastructure department of Elia. So it means I'm in charge of all the project in West Flanders, Oost Flanders, and NO.
And my name is Annelieve van Melkewijk. I started working for Elia 14 years ago, and my current job is commissioning manager in the northeast part of Belgium.
Thank you, ladies. I propose we show you the corporate movie of Elia so get some insights of the activities of Elia. Enjoy it.
It all begins with a gust. A wave. Or a spark. Creating energy. And so, our journey begins. Facing all forces of nature. At any time. And anywhere. From here to here. In a split second. Bringing light. Life. Laughter. Security. Progress. And welfare. For you. And you. And all of you. And 30 million other people. Balancing. Maintaining. Delivering. And yet, you probably give us no more thought than the flick of a switch.
Dear ladies, dear participants, before we go to your very concrete questions, I would like to present you briefly the activities of Elia. So as you have seen in the film, the mission of Elia is to transport electricity from producers like Electrabel and Luminous, for instance, to consumers. The large consumers, like industries, are directly connected to Elia's grid, and the other ones are connected to distribution network managed by Ores, uh, Fluvius, Sibelga, for instance, and those distribution networks that are connected to Elia's network. So the mission of Elia is to maintain this grid and also to develop it to meet the challenge of the future. We also have a department in charge of balancing the grid and the supply and the demand of the electricity on the grid. So it means we have three main technical departments in Elia. The first one, infrastructure, in charge of the project. It can be project where we will replace obsolete equipments, but it can also be project to install new installations like overhead lines, cables, or a new substation, or even a new island in sea to connect offshore grid. Then you have a second department, asset, which is in charge of maintaining the grid and also commissioning new infrastructures. And we also have a third technical department, customer market and systems, in charge of modeling the grid and the balance between supply and demand of electricity so that we have a reliable and stable network. Beside that, we also have all the usual suspects like HR and talent management, IT, procurement, communication, strategy that make us a top employer. So as you may see in Elia, we have job on the fields, we have job in the offices, we have job in multidisciplinary teams, but also very expert job. And I will let my colleague Annelien present you her career path up to now.
Thank you, Isabel. So I would like to explain a bit more about the about my career. I'm sorry. I started 14 years ago as a young graduate. I just finished my studies, and I had the opportunity to enter into a program where I had the opportunity to work together with different departments within Elia on small missions, so that I had the opportunity to see what they did, how they worked. And that also gave me an insight of what I wanted to do afterwards in my career. After 2 years, I then became a business analyst, meaning that I worked together with businesses and also IT in order to support certain business processes with IT tools, for example, outage planning, work definition, those kind of processes. After that, I decided that I wanted to have a bit more of a technical challenge, and so then I became a project leader of infrastructure projects, where, for example, I ran a project where we had to build a new transformer in a certain substation. After that, I became the team leader of a team of project leaders, so doing the same job that I did before, but then as a team leader. And then a couple of years ago, I switched again to commissioning manager, meaning that I am now in charge of a couple of teams that are um, basically maintaining and commissioning low voltage installations on the field, and also working together with our contractors to make sure that the infrastructure projects that are done in our substations are done in a very safe way, because safety is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing that we care for in Elia.
Wow, that's 5 jobs in 14 years. That's quite good. Of course, before having this nice career within Elia, we first have to meet you and to attract you new talent, and that's where my role comes in. Together with my team, we first of all are making sure that there is an employer branding that's sustainable, and we're doing actions like we're doing today to get in touch with you. Then, of course, we're doing the recruitment and the talent acquisition of new talent, diverse talent that we need to make sure the energy transition can happen. After that, you will be onboarded. You have, of course, payroll and compensation and benefits to make sure that you have sustainable and a good salary with advantages. But the most important thing is once you're there, you have plenty of opportunities to learn and to develop yourself. Like Annelien can be in a career track, can be in your own function. That's a little bit up to you. So that's basically the broad things what we're doing with HR. And like Isabel said, there are the other corporate functions within Elia. We've been talking now to give you an insight about whom we are, what are we doing, but of course this Jobinar is for you. And the most important thing is that we give you the time now to ask questions. There are no stupid questions, they're only good questions, and we will try to answer them as good as possible. Let me have a check. I have the first question already. What are the skills that Elia is looking for a perfect program manager? Isabel?
A perfect program manager. First, we are not really looking for perfection, or we don't have a very standard for perfection. I would say that the very classical competencies like scope management, planning, budget are quite important. But we also have a lot of stakeholder management in our projects. And I would say that we are looking for creative people so that we can find solutions to all our problems so that we can deliver on time and on budget.
Okay, thank you. A second question that came in from Louisa. What do you develop with respect to solar energy?
That's a good question. Solar energy is important. It's developing at this point. So, actually, what you should know is that solar energy is connected to the distribution grids, so the grids that are also connected to the Elia network. And so, in respect of solar energy, we need to work together closely with distribution net managers, such as Fluvius, such as Ores, to make sure that we prepare our grids, and I mean our grid, but also the distribution grid, for the future, because it's it doesn't become easier if you have more injection points where you have generation of energy. But I think it's very needed in order to have a sustainable network for the future. What we can also say about solar energy is that for Elia, it's also important to be as sustainable as possible. So we have a program that has been set up within Elia that's called Act Now. We want to act now to make sure that we are sustainable for the future. And so one of the things that we also are thinking about is installing solar panels on all the buildings that we have in our substations. We have quite some substations, there's quite some buildings in there, so there's a lot of potential to actually put solar panels there to generate energy from there as well.
Thank you. Another question from Leslie. Why is it fun to work at Elia? And I suppose we can answer them, the three of us. Isabel?
I would say that working at Elia is a very diverse job. You can have Jobinars to present, or you can have It's really a very diverse job. And with a lot of people, and as I mentioned in the introduction, we have very diverse type of jobs. Very The modeling, for instance, is absolutely not like the maintaining of a grid, and every day we have to handle all those aspects to perform our projects. So I would say that that's the reason why it's fun. Then I would say also that it's that Elia has tried to care for the comfort of the employees.
Okay.
And so even if we have a quite challenging job, I would not say that we don't have a challenging job, but I have the feeling that we are doing it in a comfortable way. So this is making the challenge a bit more fun.
Okay.
What I
Annelien?
would like to add to that is the collaboration with colleagues is something that is very important to me. Within Elia, if you have a question, you can just go up to someone, work together on some certain subject, and you will get answers. People are willing to help you. And something else that I like very much is if I see how proud that the people on the field, so the people in my teams are on their jobs, on what they deliver as installations that work properly, that actually have a meaning for society as well. That's something that I appreciate a lot, and that gets me or that keeps me going.
Okay. And I can maybe answer for my part. For my part, it's also the personal factor, like you said. People are willing to help out, but also that you can have an impact. I think certainly for engineers, but me for a corporate function, for example, as well. I'm recruiting new talent to make sure that all these projects and everything that we want to establish and doing for the energy transition can happen. And then we can also talk, when we're really talking about the fun part, is like last weekend we had the Elia Trophy. It's a sports challenge that you can do. We're sleeping in tents and working together. And it's just really to make sure that we have boundaries and that we can get to know each other more in an informal way. We also have other teams who are running marathons, etc. So we really have a large scale of, doing things in the professional way, but also just the fun way, in the informal way, because basically that's it. You have to collaborate together and be strong together to obtain one and good results. Okay, let's see. What else do we have from questions? Another question I have is, why finally, of what is the key element that you would say that you would choose for Elia? And because before you were in the company, why should you go for Elia and not for another company?
For me, it was two things. One thing was I was curious to learn about energy, about um, sorry. I was curious to learn about energy. I was also very charmed about the program that I was able to get into, so that you had the possibility to look into different departments before you actually went into your first real job. That gives you time to explore a bit, because when you finish school and you have to decide at that point what you want to do for the rest of your career, I thought that was something that was very scary, actually. And by doing a program like that, it's more a smooth transition.
Okay. And for you, Isabel, because it's not been that long that you're in the
No, no,
company
I'm here
compared to
since
Isabel.
2 years,
To Annelien.
and indeed, I already worked 20 years before. So the reason why I choose Elia was more to remain in the energy sector, because to me it's a sector which is giving means
Mm-hmm.
to my work. Also to be in a Belgian firm, and
Yeah.
with an impact really on the life of our citizens. It was important for me, but also to go in a company where we really have an ambition to improve things, to go further, and to go above what is really our mission. We try to go one step further and to think about the future. And I was really impressed by that.
Okay. And if I have to speak for myself, then I imagined like the first time I got really in contact with Elia, and it was the cultural fit for me. It was really, I felt like, okay, here it's a place where I'm not a number, I'm a person, I can contribute, I can have impact. And basically, after I'm looking back, it's true that I feel comfortable here, I can be
Mhm.
myself. And what I liked as well is the fact that you can have an ownership and an impact. Like, for example, I started in the beginning in 2017 only with recruitment and employer branding. And then I said, okay, I want to have the part of the contingent workforce as well because it's logical.
Mhm.
And so we did it. So I think for me, it's very good to have this, yeah, impactful, and that you can have a little bit more autonomously in your function, that you can create it.
Mm.
Okay, we have another question. What are the typical jobs in assets? Then I will look at you, Annelien.
Okay, typical jobs in assets, a lot. There's plenty. What do we have? For example, assets. There's one department in there that is called asset management. Asset management. We have experts there who know the installations and the equipments very well, and they study their life cycle so that they can determine at what point we have to do maintenance, for example, at what point they should be replaced to make sure that we don't go beyond their end of lives and have a lot of failing installations. That, for example, is one job that you can do in asset management. We also have the job of commissioning manager. That's my job, working together with technicians, leading a team of technicians. There's a big technical part in there, but there's also a big people management part in there. Um, yeah, there's I can continue quite a while about jobs in assets, but maybe it's already
It's a
enough
really
to
good
have
overview.
these two explained.
Yeah, thank you. Another question came in. As a project manager, is a management certificate necessary? Is there any training? Isabel?
So no, there is no specific certificate which is required. A certificate can be a plus to show that you have skills in project management. But I would say that, as I mentioned yesterday with one of my new project manager,
Mm-hmm.
every project manager manage a bit on his way, and this is very good. And indeed we have also trainings on our methodologies, approach, etc., so that we are sure that everybody can master the tools that we use, and that we have a coherent approach for everybody. But we don't have a one fits all methodology or certificate that we
No, but we
follow.
do have the leadership program that's rolled out, and the competences that we share, and the
Yes.
Oscar model, for example. So we do have standardization,
Yes.
but of course, every manager is different, and all the different approaches are are welcomed. That's for sure. Another question arose: what career path possibilities do you offer? I think we've already been talking a little bit about this. If you've
Mhm.
seen like the career path of Annelien, of course there is not like something like one career path. It is up to yourself for a big thing, and I think there are possibilities. You can find your own way, and it depends. If you want to go more in expertise, then you can go on different. You can go to asset, you can go to infra, to having expertise there, but you can grow as a people manager. So it really depends up to you, but it's very, yeah, very clear that Elia supports the career paths, and we have the business partners and your people managers, of course, to support you with this.
I
So
think it's important to know that internal mobility is stimulated.
yeah.
That's something that you really feel if you're interested in some other subject, and you make it clear to your boss or to HR, then people help you look for that next challenge. I have never had the feeling that I was blocked because I had to stay in my function because I
Mhm.
was so necessary there. The yeah, the internal mobility is something that is very important, and it's clear in our everyday work. So I think that's something that's important. But as Shana said, you have to take it into your own hands. Your own development is also your own responsibility.
Yeah, but you get the context to do that.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. Yeah, of course. Another question is Elia also working with green hydrogen?
I would say that the answer is a bit the same as for the solar energy. We need to have a grid that sustain the development of such a technology, which will be a
Mhm.
challenge for our grid. But we are not producers, so we are not really. We have to to give to ensure that our grid will sustain this type of technology. And yes, this is indeed a serious challenge. And for instance, the island in sea can be one of the elements that will be needed. It will be a way to get a lot of offshore energy, and this offshore and renewable energy will be maybe one of the sources to get hydrogen. But voilà, our job is the grid, the
Yeah,
transport
the
of electricity.
transport of it. And of course, we try to help with the distribution and with the producers, and of course, also with politics to make sure that we can get it as green as possible. Another question came in. Can someone with electromechanical but with experience from another sector join Elia? Or do you look for similar job experience?
I'm actually an electromechanical engineer,
Yeah.
so electromechanical should fit Elia. um, if you have similar job experience, it can be a plus. But what you have to know is when you enter Elia, there's a lot of trainings that are foreseen that you can follow. So if you are willing to learn, I think that is the most important thing.
Yeah, and I would say that a similar experience can be a plus, but a different experience and another view on a point can be a plus too. I remember when I was in the recruiting process that one of my strong points was the fact that I would be able to challenge a bit the way we are doing project and program management in Elia. So
Mhm.
uh, yes,
Mm.
for sure there are opportunities for people coming from other sectors and having another way of working, of viewing our challenges. So be comfortable.
Another question: what hardware skills do we learn in the different positions? Who can answer this one, Annelien?
I think that very much depends on the position that you will be in. If you start working, for example, as a designer, then you will have to learn. I think it's MicroStation. If you start working in for example, the department that does the net calculations, then there's Elia tools that have been developed in the past that calculate the balances in the network. You will have to learn to work with those tools. If you are working as a technician and you have to manipulate certain equipment to test our low voltage relays, that's also software and materials that are already there and that you will have to learn to work with. So I think it's a very difficult question
And a
and
very
to give
broad one as
one
well. Huh?
answer.
Yeah,
Yeah, it really depends on where you end up in Elia.
yeah. Can you please explain the selection process? That's the following question, the different steps and the time frame. I can answer this one as a recruitment manager. So first of all, feel free to go to our job site. I think that's the first thing, to apply online with your CV. And then the first thing we'll do, we will ask you already upfront some questions about your actual salary, your expectations, etc., to make sure that we don't lose time on both sides. Afterwards, after you've been sending your CV, we will of course screen your CV, and then afterwards you will get some tests. First of all, you will certainly get a test about your personality. It's not a good or bad test, it's just a perception of who you think you are. That opens the discussion for later on if you pass through. And certain functions, it will depend. You can get some other tests, can be verbal tests, can be numeric tests. That depends on the function. Then, when everything goes well and you're selected through this, you get a phone screening where you get in touch with the recruiter, where you can already talk and ask some questions. Everything goes well, then you get through the interview stage where we try to do the interview directly together with the business. We're recruiting via attitude-based interviewing. Why is it important? Because we don't only need your hard competencies, huh? That's one thing, but that you can learn. But the second thing is that we found it really important that you have the right attitude and that there is a cultural fit. Then it depends. It can be that the senior manager wants to see the new talent. That depends on the profile, and depending on the level, it can be that there is an assessment. But it's for sure it's not for everybody. And then afterwards, if everything goes well, you get a proposition. Of course, if it's accepted, then you get the onboarding. It goes quite fast. You can maybe
Yeah, I can testimony because when I hear to you, when I'm listening to you, it seems so long, but no, it goes quite fast. I would say in 2-3 months it was done, and it was in COVID time for me.
Yeah.
So it goes quite fast, and it's more natural than it looks like when you explain
Yeah, of
it.
course, it's
I would say that all the test. You should go and be as natural as you can, and be comfortable, and it will be easy. Maybe easy is not the right term, but be natural and go for it, and you will see that everything will go well, and
And
voilà.
sleep well the night
And
before.
sleep well the night before the test, indeed. But I remember, for instance, the discussion I had, I don't know, it was one of the steps with the HR, the head of HR, and it was more like a discussion about how I would do, what I was thinking about one or another aspect about the business of Elia, the challenges of the future. It was more a discussion for me than really a test. So
yeah, and that's our approach, because basically that's the most important thing, and that you find yourself back in the discussion, and that on the other side as well.
yeah,
And then there is a match,
yeah.
and then we can go further, of course. Another question after you accept the proposal. So, what does the onboarding look like? Even before being in the company, you get access to an application. An application already shows you who is your manager, which are your colleagues, the people that will support you in the beginning, also for the more practical sides, your godmother or godfather, like we call it. But you also get some insights or some films. You can also answer questions. And then on the first day, you will have a welcome day. Welcome day, that's one day together with all the new recruiters. You will be sitting together. There will be more explanations. And then after 6 months, once you're in your function, of course, you will be welcomed by the division and by the manager. And then after 6 months, there is a coming back session, like we call it. That's the lightning day. And the lightning day is more talking about what are the critical projects now in Elia. Different senior managers or directions come to talk to you, to make sure that after a while, when you're there for 6 months, that you even get more insights. That's what the onboarding looks like in a traditional way. Another question: how is equal treatment with regard to diversity maintained during evaluation for promotions in Elia? Whew. Okay, that's a heavy one. I would say I don't even ask this question in the sense that men and female are yeah, there is not a difference that we're making. We're looking first of all to the evaluation process. It's first in the beginning you get your objectives, then you have in the middle of the year you do have your mid-year evaluation, and then your end-year evaluation, and that comes up the measurements in a smart way, what you have been doing that year and where do your efforts stand for. If we're talking about more promotions, then it's more um, another trajectory, I would say. It can go with the evaluation from the year, but it's also coming up with your career paths. And of course, we already have succession planning as well. And we're listening to people when they're talking in their mid year, I want to do something else. And then we can see for training and for developing if something is still needed. So it's a natural process, and we do make sure that everybody get the chance, but also the feedback on what do we still have to do better.
And there's actually no difference
No
in
difference.
expectations about results between male and female people in Elia. It's
You're an employee,
yeah,
and you have
and
objectives.
there's objectives that you have to fill, and yeah.
Yeah, but I would say coming from another company that it's more natural that you will see women everywhere. In fact, in all the level, in all the type of
Mm-hmm.
positions. Maybe I don't know by the technicians if you have a lot, but at all level of the organization we see women, and also in the uh, this kind of events or in general we don't need to really have a, a KPI, for instance, because every time
Mm.
it's quite natural. We have men and we have women, and it goes quite well.
Yeah, and it's even broader. Eh?
We have
It's Ali,
we have a
everything
good
that's about
balance.
diversity.
Mhm,
The company embrace it because we know that diversity is
mhm.
important, and that the more insights we have and different perspectives, that it's always giving you to
Yeah.
the better result. Huh?
No.
Yeah, for sure. Another question. Tell me about most recent project you've been working on. What were your responsibilities? Maybe Isabel?
Uh, I can talk about my two main visible projects, being Ventilus and Boucle du Hainaut. It's two new overhead lines aiming at connecting the offshore grid the offshore grid
Hmm.
production to the shore, and going inside the country. It's a very difficult project because we know that the public is not always very happy to see new overhead lines, but we are also trying to be able to dismantle also lines and to underground some lines. But given the level given that we are at very high level of tension, we cannot underground it, and it's not always easy to explain to people and to public opinion where are the technical limits to underground some lines. So it's not that easy because it's not allez, we would like to please everybody and not to have to construct new lines, but it's really exciting projects because for me it will be a way to really reinforce our grid, and I'm expecting that we will have news soon about the next steps on those projects and the decision that has to be made by the politicals. So those are my very recent activities where to try to get those decisions and to
Yeah, it's
well
not always easy, but it is in interest of society to make sure that we can have this line.
for sure, and
Because
it's
if
very
not, we will not even have this webinar.
yeah.
Electricity will not come via distribution to your house. So that's very important to say.
Yeah.
I have another question coming in. What are the jobs based? Where are the job based? Is the remote working an option? Most of the jobs are based in Belgium. We have the three administrative sites in Brussels, but of course, if you're working on the field, we're everywhere in every location in Belgium. And is remote working an option? It depends on your function, but I would say that for people who can work remotely, it's even encouraged. We're working 60% from home and 40% at the office. And it's quite flexible. It's together with your team that you're making this arrangement from when you're coming to the office.
Yeah, it's what you say. It depends on in what function you are. For me, it's a bit more difficult to work a lot from home, especially because the technicians that we work with, they cannot work at home because they need to work in the substations. So for me, it's a bit less, but it's really linked to what you need to do in your job. But if it's possible, then yeah, it's
Yeah, you
encouraged.
can. Yeah,
True.
of course. And we didn't even had a problem before COVID. We already did it on the remote working.
Mm.
So effectively, the ones who can,
Yeah.
it's encouraged. Yeah. Another question: could you describe your company's management style? Whew, that's a broad one as well.
Yeah.
Isabel?
As I mentioned in a previous question, I would say that the management style is that we have a kind of high ambitions, that
Mhm.
we are quite demanding, but also caring for our people so that we are in the best conditions to perform our work. But indeed, we are looking far and we are
Yeah.
putting the expectations quite high. This is my feeling about the management style of Elia, but I'm quite new, so maybe
Yeah,
I'm
what I
not.
would like to add to that is transparency and openness.
Yeah,
Everything can be discussed. That's
Yeah.
something that we really simulate, and it's not only in the management. It goes from the top management up until the people that are working in the field or in our administrative sites. Safety is something that is very important. I mentioned it before. And so it all starts with being able to say, I see something, and I explain to my colleague what I see and where I see a potential threat.
Yeah.
It goes from actual people safety on the field, but up until I see that my colleague is struggling a bit, and I can talk about it. We can find a solution together, or there's a new organization. It is presented. I have questions about it. I can ask all these questions. I think that kind of openness and transparency is something that is important to mention as well.
Yeah, and we also do like it when people speak up because it's important as well for having this good culture and
Mhm.
feeling good at your work place as well. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Another question came in: do you accept that people are working part time? I can say that most of the functions are full time, but if I'm looking to part time or having possibilities to shift, work more, work less, uh, like we're working from home and hybrid solution, you can also very easily see what you can do on sometimes having less prestations, sometimes more.
Mm.
So there is flexibility, and we really are a people company. So it's a discussion you can have with your management on the moment that you need it. For example, I will take in July for the first time my congé parental. I never did it, but it's never a question. It's okay. You can do it as long as you can organize your job. So it's more like a discussion. But most of the people on their contract are working full time. Another question came in: what kind of employees fit well in your workplace environment? Whew, I would say that's also a broad one. I think everybody who feels that they can have an impact and they want to contribute to the interests of society and to make the energy transition happen in a constructive and a positive way, I think they're welcomed. Of course, you need certain hard skills or competencies, but for the rest, I would say it's more for me the cultural fit who is important.
Willing to learn, I would
Willing to
say.
learn,
That's
yeah,
something that's important as well.
and
Being
doing the
curious.
extra mile and working together, like the collaboration is important.
Yeah, but that's the perfect employee
Yeah,
does not exist.
no, no. Okay, another question came in: tell me about the project you are the most proud of and what was your contribution? Maybe Annalene?
Let me think. The project that I was most proud of, I think probably maybe the first project that I was proud of when I started working at Elia. That's something that for me was a big milestone in my career. I was working as a business analyst at that point, and we had a big go live of a new IT tool that we had been developing. I have been writing specifications for it. I had been working together with IT during development. We had been testing. We had been presenting it to our users, and then at a certain Saturday, because we needed to do it in the weekends in order to be ready by Monday morning. We started rolling out, and we had planned for working the entire weekend, and Saturday evening everything was finished. So I had one day left in the weekend, which was not expected. And then on Monday morning, everybody was early at work and a bit nervous because all the end users would start using actually that new IT tool. Um, and it worked. We didn't have a lot of calls, a lot of help desk calls. So that's something I was quite proud of because I started it from the beginning and I saw it, yeah, being born for real. That's yeah, that was one of the first things that made me quite proud to yeah have worked on it.
Thank you. Another question: what kind of trainings are you offering to your employees? Like today, we have the Elia Academy, who is our central point for learning, and there we have the soft skills that you can train. You can have a lot of possibilities as well for language training, soft skills, but also hard skills. We also have the certification. Sometimes we
Yeah.
really need, so we do have a broad, yeah, a broad offer that you can have a look into. And even if you don't find it internally, you can still have discussion to follow training externally.
Mm.
So on learning and development, we really put a lot of interest in it because we know that's the way we're going to develop our people.
Mm.
It's developing yourself on the job, but also via learnings.
And
Yeah,
it's not only on hard technical skills. That's of course very important if you work in electricity, but it's also on soft skills.
yeah,
There's It's important to say.
yeah. Another question: do you work with universities on research projects, for example, industrial PhDs?
Not in infrastructure, but I think that in customer market and systems, they are more used to collaborate with universities because we are talking there on very high level modeling and
Yeah,
very challenging modeling. And so indeed we are collaborating with universities, but I could not give you a very precise example of that.
okay, thank you, Isabel. What would be your plans for the future? Whew, that's a broad one as well. I think it's making the energy transition happening and making sure that we can integrate all these renewables into our net. And what we're doing now is also making sure that we have the connection with our neighbors, with other countries, to make sure that we can have
Yeah.
electricity that's, yeah, that can be exported but also imported. Huh?
Mm.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mentioned when I said that we have high expectation and high ambitions. We see that really we try to look even abroad to see how we can encourage at the European level. We can encourage the renewables energy, etc.,
Yeah.
and the challenges for the grid. So I think that this is a bit our next steps. It's the connections with the to reinforce the connection with the other countries and to do it offshore. I think it will
Yeah,
be this
offshore
way.
and onshore for sure.
And make sure that the people that work in Elia are ready for taking up these challenges. And by that I mean we are also working really hard on digitalization.
Yeah.
So our technicians today, they still do a lot on paper. We really want to have a shift there as well, from paper to paperless, having much more integrated systems. That's also something that is part of that transition for me.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Another question: what are the language requirements? We're talking English now, but most of the time we do ask you to speak or Dutch or French, or at least having a knowledge of one of the two languages. We're getting more and more international because we also have 50 Hertz, one of the TSOs in Germany, into the company. So we do speak English, but as we are a Belgian company, it's important to have a knowledge of French and or Dutch, at least. And it's always good to speak more languages. It's much more easier to get in contact with all the diversity into the company. So another question arose. What is unique about your company? Our people, I would say, and our activities. We're the only one doing it.
Yeah.
That was what I was going to say. We are the only transmission system operator in Belgium. So in Belgium, it's unique.
Yeah,
Every country has its own, but
and you can contribute to energy transition, and it's a hot topic in society, so it must be a hot topic as well in a company. And you know that every day you can contribute to this. So it's important.
Yeah, this is unique for me. It's the impact you can have really concretely on the life of the citizens.
Yeah.
This is
Mm.
And I think with these words, we come to an end of our session. I would say if you have any other questions, please, you can still put them in the chat. We will be very happy to answer them and get in contact with you personally. But for now, our time is up. I want to thank you for your attendance. And I want to thank my two colleagues for being here because even for us, it's not an everyday thing that we're doing, but we're more than welcome to give all the answers to your questions. And I hope we can get in contact soon. Thank you very much and have a nice day.